and welcome to BlueTube, where we talk all things blue. And today I'm going to be reviewing the match against Crystal Palace, which happened yesterday. And as the title says, and as it says here, and as I'm sure you already know, we had another loss, 2-1 against Crystal Palace. And this is Jose Mourinho's second ever Premier League home loss during his both his reigns at Chelsea. So very disappointing, obviously. And actually, the match was yesterday. I'm filming this the day after, and that's because I actually made one yesterday, and I filmed like a 30-minute video, but it kind of just turned into a rant, and I was just angry and sad and depressed, and the video was very boring. So this is the second take. I've given myself some time to really think about it, because really yesterday I was just ranting, and still there are so many things that I'm unhappy about, and it's a very poor performance from us from so many perspectives. Let me get into that in just a second. But it is a loss, and we are looking at the bigger picture. It's 4 points from 4 games, and I think that's probably one of our worst Premier League starts in the last decade or so. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it is the most poor start, because Chelsea are a team that usually starts off very well. Normally speaking, August and September and October we usually play very well, and November is the month where we just fail. That's like how we've usually been for the last few years. But especially during August, September, the first few weeks, Chelsea have a history of hitting the ground running. And just if you look at the bigger picture, just forget this game for now. Just from all the way back to a month and a half ago, right back to the beginning of preseason, with our 4-2 loss against Red Bulls, everyone was saying it's just a one-off. It's preseason, it doesn't matter. And then we went to Barcelona, drew 2-2. Won on penalties, but what does that even mean? And actually, we went to PSG before. We won on penalties. Barcelona won on penalties, and we haven't won a game all the way until last week against West Brom. So for over a month, we haven't won a game, and in that time we've also suffered a 3-0 loss against our rivals Manchester City, and Mourinho he's very good against the big teams. He's very tactically capable, and that's one of the things that differentiates him from all the managers in the rest of the world. He can adjust his tactics. He can analyze how our opposition's playing, and just really line our team up to get the win, to get points. He doesn't always play the most attractive football, but he does get the points. And what really makes Mourinho special is that even when his team is playing poorly, he manages to get points. And after yesterday's game and yesterday's video, I talked for about 20 minutes just about Mourinho, saying what's going on with Mourinho. And really, I've looked at the last few games. In every single game, I've tried to analyze what's going wrong. You can say our defense is weak, our attackers aren't looking up to it. Our midfield, Matic and Fabregas are just on another planet. And I can say that, as I've been saying for the last few games. But what really hit me yesterday, and yesterday was so significant because, as I've said, Mourinho's second ever loss at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League. What really hit me was, maybe something's wrong with Mourinho. Maybe we should stop looking at the players for a sec and look at the managers. And don't get me wrong, the players have been awful. And yet, if the players aren't up to, if the players don't play well, Mourinho as a manager can't really do anything about it. Of course he can do something about it. I don't know how to phrase this, but it's the players on the pitch that score the goals and that wins the games. Mourinho in the games, he just stands to the side. But the role of the manager is so big, and it's everything that happens off the pitch that Mourinho is responsible for. And usually Mourinho is a very detail-oriented person. He's very meticulous in his planning. And the first thing that I'm extremely shocked about, in fact, is his decision to give his players a full holiday break, which meant that we only had 2.5 weeks of preseason. And it's not a secret that our preseason's been terrible, and it's very un-Mourinho. Like he's usually a guy that plans ahead, who can anticipate things very well. And in fact, he himself has said, you know what, it was a mistake to give them a full break. It was a mistake to push our preseason so back. He's admitted it. But the fact that he's even made that mistake in the first place is very, very un-Mourinho-like. And if you look at our team play in the last, 7 or 8 games, including preseason, we've been very, very un-Mourinho-like. We've been lacking an appetite, that hunger. Like last season, when we went a goal down, you just knew something's gonna happen. You knew we were gonna inject something into the game to get something out of it. We're gonna try everything we could to win that game, but we just don't have that. We've been chasing games a lot. We've been chasing, actually not chasing games a lot, but against West Brom we were defending a goal, and to be fair, we looked, almost back to, what we looked like last season where we defended really, really well. Really good. What's the word? When we're trying to hold on to the 3-2, that looked better than our previous games. But today, when we're chasing that goal, we just didn't have the appetite. We just didn't have that hunger and that drive. Like last season, whenever we had a game that we're chasing, you just knew we were gonna score. Like against Everton, I remember in the bridge, we got that goal in like the 89th or 90th minute by Willian, his volley. And there's been so many games like that last season. And in fact, even against Tottenham, where we lost 5-3, the score was 5-2, I think. I know the score was 5-3, but during the game it was 5-2, and we were down by 3 goals. But there was just something about our team. You could tell, we were hungry. You could tell we were gonna try everything, and you knew even though we were 3 goals down, the game wasn't over, and you could genuinely feel that. And of course, we pulled it back to 5-3. We couldn't, get any more, but we still played very, very well. We showed that hunger, that drive to win that game, and we just don't have that. And that's incredibly un-Mourinho-like. The one word that you would associate with Mourinho teams is warrior. And really, Mourinho's made this analogy before. But when he sends his players out onto the pitch, it's like going to war, and their players need to be willing to die for him. And if you look at his history in Porto, his first run at Chelsea, and in Inter Milan, maybe not so much in Real Madrid, but in those 3 teams, you can really, really see, that warrior kind of mentality in those players, and that's just missing right now. That hunger, it's just not there. And I feel like I've been rambling for Mourinho. Let me just talk about the game. This is a match review after all. Obviously 2-1. The first goal of the game came in mid-second half, I think. 65th minute, in fact, by Sacco from Crystal Palace. But really, the first half, I can't emphasize how poor we were. We had 65% possession in the first half and 63% possession in the entire game as a whole. But in the first half, we had possession, but we looked, and I've said this before, kind of jokingly, but I really mean it. I really mean it now. We looked like Arsenal 2 seasons ago, where they just literally pass it side to side, back to the keeper, forward, side, back, forward, back to the keeper, back, forward. And then it was just so infuriating to watch. And I think we had 1 shot on target in that entire first half at the bridge. And that must be some kind of record for, lowest shots on target, at home. But I don't know. And really, Crystal Palace should have gotten a goal the first half. Cabaye had an incredible chance. And, credit to Courtois. In fact, I'd say Courtois and Begovic have been the 2 best players for us throughout the last month and a half. That just kind of tells you something about the other 10 players on the pitch. But Courtois pulled off an incredible save, and really, we should have been down 1-0. But of course, Crystal Palace didn't get the goal that they deserved in the second half, but bring it to 1-0. And Falcao, who came on as a sub, and these are some of the positive things. Falcao, Loftus-Cheek, and Kennedy, who all came as subs, they were the only 3 players that were good, and they were the positive, side of this game. Everything else was negative. I'm gonna save those 3 for the end of the video because I want to end on a positive note. But Falcao did open up the scoring, and immediately after, literally within 2 minutes, Joel Ward gets a goal for Palace, and we lost 2-0. But really, let me tell you what, when Palace were up 1-0, Yannick-Bolasie had an incredible chance, really a tap-in, and he missed it. And if he had scored that, they would have been up 2-0 and the game would have been completely different. It really would have. And we were very, very lucky in that game. And really, the fact that we were that lucky, that Palace missed two tap-ins, really, and they still won 2-1 at the bridge, that just kind of tells you how terrible we were. I don't know what to say. And actually, if you watch Mourinho's post-match interviews and stuff, he said this is typical of Mourinho, and I'm not angry at this. I'm not annoyed by this. I'm just more. Let me just tell you, whenever Mourinho loses a game, he makes up an excuse to try to deflect the attention away from his team, and usually it works because he very rarely loses games. Usually, he very rarely loses, so he doesn't have to use his tactic a lot. And if you use it just sporadically, then it's fine. It can kind of, because time and stuff. I don't know what I'm saying, but Mourinho, for literally the last so many games, every single game afterwards, he would say, we should have had a penalty, it shouldn't have been a red card, it shouldn't have been a red card again, we should have had a penalty, they shouldn't have had a penalty. He said that so many times, and it just gets annoying. And the thing is, because it's happening game after game after game, because we're constantly losing or drawing or getting disappointing results, it's just getting a little bit annoying. And I don't blame Mourinho for this, because I really, let's talk about the players, in fact. Go through the starting 11. Courtois, as I said, played well. Azpilicueta, you know what? He played well. I think he's the only player in that starting 11 that can honestly say that they've played a good game. The only player, and actually him and Courtois, so the only outfield player who can say he's had a good game. Zuma, Cahill, to be fair, they weren't terrible. They just weren't good. And, you need to be good to play at Chelsea, really. Ivanovic, I can talk about him for so long. I can really talk about him for so long. Out of the last 4 games in the Premier League, we've conceded how many goals? We drew 2-2, we lost 3-0, we won 3-2, and we lost 2-1. So we've conceded 9 goals in the last 4 games. And I'd say Ivanovic is directly responsible for 6 of them. Just go watch the highlights for every single match. I would say Ivanovic is responsible for 6 of those goals. Directly responsible. Because of his lack of pace. Because of his I don't know what it is. He's just terrible. And I've been patient with him. I've said, in fact, I made a video about him about 3 weeks ago saying he's not over it. He's still good. He's still got it in him. It's just he's not up to match fitness yet. I've defended him because I like him as a player, because he served us well over the last 5 seasons or so. But really, it's time for him to go to the bench, At least for the next game. I'm not saying bench him for the rest of the season. I'm not saying axe him permanently. But Mourinho surely figured out by now that Ivanovic is the main problem in our defense. And really, it's his unreliability, his lack of pace, that's led us to conceding so many goals. And surely a mastermind like Mourinho would have seen this by now. And in fact, one of the positives that we can take from this game is this. In his post-match interview, Mourinho himself said there are a few players on the pitch that played well, and really for a team to win, you need 11 players to play well. And there are 2 or 3 players that were not good throughout the entire 90 minutes. And I forgot his exact words, but he basically hinted that Ivanovic, he basically said, I put my faith in these players, and when they don't play well, I can do 2 things. I can either keep putting my faith into them, I can keep trusting them, or I can axe them. He basically said that. And he said, he went as far as to say that, I wish I watched the interview just before I made this video, so it's fresh in my mind, but he basically said, maybe I made a mistake. Basically. And he didn't say Ivanovic, he didn't single him out, by name, but he basically hinted it. He basically, you could tell he was talking about Ivanovic when he was saying that. And he's basically saying, I put my faith in him, but he's playing very, very bad. I regret my decision. I made a mistake. So hopefully, Baba Rahman will get the start that he deserves. I put him on the left, Azpilicueta to the right, and I really genuinely think, because Cahill and Zuma, as I said, they didn't play bad, but they didn't play well. And really, I think if we have a good right back, then they can play well. I think if we put in Baba Rahman, put Azpilicueta on the right, get rid of Ivanovic for now, then really our defense will look so much stronger. I genuinely believe that. And I hope Mourinho wakes up. I hope Ivanovic just doesn't play in the next game. And really, what my biggest fear is? Our next 2 games are against Everton and Arsenal. Those aren't easy games. And what I fear is that we're going to lose both those games. Because if we can't beat Crystal Palace at home, what chance do we have against them? And I know I'm overreacting, but imagine at the end of 6 weeks, We have 4 points. That's probably low enough to be in the relegation zone. And really, we're playing that badly. In fact, I think we deserve to be in the relegation zone with the way we're playing right now. It's absolutely appalling. Let's move on to the other players. Up the pitch, we had Matic, Fabregas. Fabregas, I want to say he looked better. In fact, I will say Fabregas looked better than previously. I think he is getting up there. He is starting to, get there. But he really should be there by now. It's been 4 weeks, And in fact, the whole thing with preseason, Mourinho himself has said, we had a bad preseason, so it's going to take a while for these players to get back to their match fitness. And I've defended that. I've said, against City, against Swansea, against West Brom, actually not West Brom because we won, but actually we were still shaky there. But I've said, our players aren't up to their fitness yet. We're not up to our usual level. But it's been 4 weeks since the season has started. Surely we should be ready to hit the ground running by now. Surely we should be ready to play some proper football by now. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something inside the club. Maybe it's the medical department just not doing their job. Maybe Eva Carneiro just got angry and started to just not recover our players. I don't know. That's ridiculous. But the players should be up to their fitness by now. They really should be. And I hope, because we have an international break, I hope they can just get out of Chelsea for a week. I hope they can go to their respective international teams and really just think about the last month at Chelsea, really reflect on it, and come back feeling fresh, feeling better, just forgetting the past, and really hitting the ground running from Everton onwards. But Fabregas, as I said, getting back to him, he played okay. Matic, he played better than he played against West Brom, I'll say that, but he still played terribly. Matic, he's just on another planet right now. He needs to, I don't know what the problem is. He's just clumsy, he's just bad. Going to our front three, we started with Hazard, Willian, and Pedro. And really, Willian, let me talk about him first. Willian, he gets into a lot of shooting positions. And that's good. His movement off the ball is good. His drive up the pitch is very, very good. But he just can't shoot the ball to save his life. In fact, I think he had about 4 shots in that first half. In fact, we did have a lot of shots in that game. I think we had like 28 attempts. But we had like 5 on target, which just tells you something. And Willian just kept skying it over and over and over again. And really, that just makes me think, imagine we had a player like Pogba playing in that attacking midfield role. And getting those shots on target, imagine what could happen. Willian, I like him as a player. He's got a very good work rate. He does add a lot to the team, but he just needs to add the goals to his game. And he's been at Chelsea for the last 2 seasons and he scored 8 goals. That tells you something. And he's been at the starting 11 for most of the games. And he needs to start adding goals to his game. Pedro on the right, I wouldn't say he played very well, to be honest. Against West Brom, he had a dream debut. He was phenomenal. Today, he just wasn't good. But to be fair, the thing is, how can you expect a player to be good when everyone around you is playing so badly? So, Pedro, he didn't play badly. He was just kind of, an average. He had an average game, let's say that. And I don't blame him, really, because Costa, Fabregas, Hazard, Willian, they didn't support him. And let's talk about Hazard. I think this is his worst game in a while, really. Including preseason, I don't remember seeing Hazard playing this poorly. And I genuinely can't remember a game ever since Hazard joined this club where I can honestly say that I didn't see Hazard in that game. Now, I can't remember ever thinking that to myself, ever thinking that Hazard just wasn't at the game. But yesterday, he wasn't at the game. He just didn't play. I can't remember him touching the ball. He just didn't do anything. And, I feel kind of sorry for him. I think it's a similar story with Pedro. I mean, the last 3 games against City, against Swansea, against West Brom, Hazard's been good. In my opinion, he was the only player in our team that showed that hunger, that desire, and really tried to score goals and tried to make things happen. And I feel like he's been trying for so long, for the last 3 weeks, and nobody else has been supporting him. And now he's just gotten to a point where he's tired. He can't carry the team on his own, and he's just fading away now. Hopefully, as I said, the international break will freshen our players up, and they can come back with a fresh mind. But he wasn't good that game at all. And Diego Costa, I'd say he was better. today than he was in the last 7 games, including preseason, but he still wasn't good. And that kind of tells you how bad he's been in the previous games. He looked a lot. In the first half, Chelsea were just terrible, but in that second half, to be fair, we did play decently. We made some good chances, and Costa, I think he played a big role in that. He looked a lot more purposeful. He looked a lot more hungry than the other players in our team, and really, I think it would be unfair for me to say that Costa had a bad game, but he didn't have a good game. And this video has been very depressing. Let me just talk about the positives and end on a positive, because I really don't want to talk about this game any longer. It was a terrible game. It was a terrible game, absolutely terrible. But the 3 positives that we can take from this game are the 3 substitutes that Mourinho made, and those substitutes are Falcao, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and Kennedy. Let's talk about Falcao first. Falcao, for the 20 minutes that he was on, was better than. Actually, I don't want to say it was better than Costa, because as I said, Costa didn't have a bad game, but he was very, very good. Falcao, and I've said this ever since preseason, ever since his first game preseason, I think against Barcelona, where he first came on, I've said he's looking good. He's looking like he wants to, he shoot at the target. He looks like he wants to score goals. He looks hungry, and that determination paid off. And the goal that he scored today wasn't an easy tap in at all. It was a difficult goal. It was a diving header into the bottom corner of the goal, and it was a very, very good goal, in fact. And he looked very positive, and credit to Falcao. I've always had faith in him. I know a lot of Chelsea fans have been divided, but what I'll say now is, in my opinion, Falcao has had a better starting 4 weeks of the Premier League than Diego Costa. And even I know Falcao didn't play every game, and Diego Costa did, but Falcao, whenever he's come on, he's looked bright, he's looked positive, and I'm glad that he's opened up his scoring tally today. Second substitution, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and the second substitution in the game was Kennedy, but let me talk about Ruben Loftus-Cheek first. He was phenomenal. I remember in like the 80-something minute, he was like the last man back, and he made an incredible sliding tackle to dispossess the Crystal Palace player on the counter-attack, and he just looked very, very positive. He looked strong. His passing looked a lot more quick, a lot more purposeful than Fabregas and Matic. And really, what I'll say is the 20 minutes that Ruben Loftus-Cheek was on, he was better than Matic was for the last 2 months. From right to the beginning of preseason until now, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has played better than Matic has. And I really do hope, Ruben Loftus-Cheek gets more of an opportunity. And actually, I would like him to start ahead of Matic against Everton, because Matic hasn't looked good. And Loftus-Cheek has really impressed me for the time that he was on today, or yesterday. And the third sub was the one that really impressed me. He genuinely impressed me, and that was Kennedy. And I knew he was good, because against Barcelona, he played very, very well. And I talked about this a lot in the match review of Barcelona. But he was incredible. He actually came on as a left back, but he was given permission to go forward because we were trying to chase the game down. And Kennedy was by far the best player on the pitch for the time that he was on there. Hazard and Pedro and Willian looked like kids compared to Kennedy. Kennedy, his driving, his dribbling, his passing, his shooting was all phenomenal. And I'd say his performance was actually, unfortunately, overshadowed by our team's poor performance. I think if Chelsea had won that game, everybody would be talking about Kennedy. They'd be saying he had such an incredible game, he's such a big talent, and he'd be getting a lot of praise. But I think, unfortunately, because our team has lost, not a lot of people are going to be praising Chelsea as a whole. So I feel sorry for Kennedy, but he had an incredible game, and really, I don't really want to say this because you never want to leave Hazard out of your side, but against Everton, I'd start Hazard ahead of Kennedy, but I really do hope Kennedy does get more game time. And in fact, what I'd say is I want to see Kennedy start ahead of Willian in that central attacking midfield role against Everton, because really he was the best player on that pitch for the time that he was on there. So what really excites me is Kennedy and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, two 19-year-olds who came in to chase the game, who've been given a huge responsibility in that game. And they impressed. They played very, very well. So the two youngsters, that excites me. And even though we lost, even though we have 4 points after 4 games, let's look at the bright side. Let's look at the glass as half full instead of half empty. We've got some great players on the bench who can come on and really make an impact. Hopefully they get more game time, in the future. But hopefully, against Everton, our whole team as a whole plays better, because right now it is just unacceptable. And if we keep playing the way we do, this is a huge statement. But I genuinely wouldn't be surprised to see us get relegated. Last season Chelsea lost, 2 games in the entire Premier League campaign. No, was it 2 or 3? I can't remember. I think it was 3 games actually in the entire Premier League campaign. This season, 4 weeks in, we've lost 2 games already. It's a terrible start. Hopefully it'll get better. This has been a terribly depressing video, so I'm just gonna end it here. I'll be back with another transfer talk video tomorrow, guys, and hopefully we really make some transfers, because our team just looks absolutely terrible right now. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow, and until then, stay blue.